Man, Brandon Cronenberg is something else. In a few films, the man has become one of my favorite directors. With his two earlier films, Antiviral and Possessor, he's proven to make unique films with truly original concepts that twist reality as we know it and turn modern issues into enlightening stories. And of course, there's the body horror. A subject of horror often misinterpreted, but perfected by Cronenberg's father, David. But unlike much of David's recent work, which feels more suitable for the niche and art house crowd, Brandon's work feels like he wants to communicate to the masses. Now that doesn't mean Brandon's gone Hollywood, but Infinity Pool is on a whole new and twisted level, yet feels much more accessible than both of his other films to date. I saw Infinity Pool a while back in theaters, but it took me a while to formulate my thoughts about it. It's not an easy movie to understand or put into words, but I think I'm to the point where I have deciphered it enough to talk about it. So here goes. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Infinity Pool was released earlier this year, and I believe it's available streaming on Paramount Plus from Neon Pictures. It's directed and written by Brandon Cronenberg. Looking for inspiration for his new book, writer James, played by Alexander Skarsgård, and his wife, Em, played by Cleopatra Coleman, take a much-needed vacation to the fictional island of Litolka. This is where they meet an eccentric couple, Alban, played by Jalil Lespert, and his wife Gabby, played by Mia Goth, who seem to know James from his first book and invite them to a secluded beach outside of the resort boundary. After partying all day on the beach, James drives the crew home and accidentally kills a civilian crossing the road. Doing the right thing, James turns himself in to the local police, but he doesn't understand that in Litolka, any crime resulting in death is punishable by execution. But for a large amount of money, the government can replace James with a lab-grown doppelganger to stand in for the execution. Once he witnesses the death of this double, it opens something dark in James, a darkness that is shared by the rest of the rich and the elite who vacation at the foreign island. Like his father's films before him, Brandon Cronenberg delivers another puzzle of a movie that proves to be fascinating to unfurl. It's a film that can inspire all sorts of questions about morality, the ugly tourist, the privileged, and the basic human experience. On the fictional island of Litolka, it seems you can get away with any crime, and that is why only the elite are attracted to it. Seeing these so-called upper-class elites revert back and forth into their roles they have back home is the most horrific moment of the movie. It doesn't involve blood or guts or any kind of torture, but it shows how easily they can forget the horrors they inflict on others and just go on being mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, whatever. These people still possess the memories of all they've done on the island. They just don't care because it doesn't affect them in the long run. Their money can sweep it under the rug. Of course, it's their money that separates them from the rest of the world, and I guess this is Cronenberg's way of talking about how souls are often exchanged for residency in the upper crust. James, Skarsgård, wants this desperately. He's pursuing inspiration, not seemingly because he has an urge to create, but it's revealed that it's because by writing a new book, that would lead him to fame and fortune.
This country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
James is easily manipulated by those around him because they recognize his book, even though it's been deemed a critical and financial failure, as he is a relation to the publisher, and only got his chance to write it because of nepotism, not talent. He wants to prove otherwise, but as seen when he is given a chance to live like the rich, that is what he really wants. The hurdles James leaps in order to convince himself to stay on the island increase the deeper he descends into the sins the group commit. These acts are beyond horrifying, harkening back to Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. Yep, that's right, folks. It's that dark and twisted. Downright primal. What I love about Cronenberg's work is that it invites conversation. It purposefully leaves details out and challenges the viewer to fill them in with their own dark details. Is this process of making a new human being technology or some kind of supernatural ritual? Are the doppelgangers murdered in the place of the rich? Or are the rich punished, and are the residents of the island replacing the elite with their own creations destined to return and pay scads more money to kill and be killed again? Why does James end up where he is by the end of the film? It's all up for debate and discussion, and every thread can be explored with fascinating details and reason. You just don't get that in many horror films today. And while one might not consider Infinity Pool a typical horror film, it is the most terrifying of horrors as it raises questions we are not comfortable answering. Reminiscent of last year's excellent Speak No Evil, which is being remade in English starring James McAvoy soon, I hope that's good, it places the viewer right on the back of an unreliable and wholly unlikable lead. James is weak. He's shallow. He's easily manipulated. These are not qualities we're comfortable with. Even though Skarsgård is basically the ideal handsome leading man, he's anything but here in this movie. And Cronenberg's immersive story forces us to slip into his very undesirable persona. That's the true terror of Infinity Pool, and it's one that many will not be prepared to experience. Of course, I have to talk about Mia Goth, who has become a powerful force in horror in the last year. Sure, she was wonderful in Pearl, Oscar-worthy in my opinion, but she's given one hell of a meaty role to play in Infinity Pool. From doe-eyed seductress to rabid psychopath, she is in control every step of the way and knows exactly what she's doing, making her all the more deadly. This role could propel Goth into the stratosphere, just the way she screams, "Yeah! Jamesy!" is enough to give you chills and nightmares. During the final scenes, where she simply participates in small talk about her boring life back home, is a transformation that is seemingly banal, but a wonderfully wicked and subtle metamorphosis after the debaucherous things we've seen her do throughout the film. Cleopatra Coleman has the arduous task of keeping up with Goth. She does her part capably, but is probably the most underdeveloped of the bunch, and is kind of reduced to be the symbolic, virtuous person that the rest have ventured so far, far away from due to their heinous actions. Things get trippy as hell, and it reminds me of another Brandon Cronenberg film, Possessor, in regards to the process of leaving one mindscape and entering another. It seems the Lee Tolkiens are using similar technology or spells or whatever it is. It involves entrancing lights, bizarre imagery, and the shredding of everything we know that is real. Infinity Pool is not about the bizarre process of replication or the psychedelic drug-infused sex scenes. It's about the shredding of humanity. It's about going someplace and believing that you are so much better than the people there that you feel you can do anything, no matter how much it hurts others. It's about the ugly tourist who feels like responsibility is so far away and they get to live out every horrible urge and impulse that they would never even think of doing back home. It's about hypocrisy. It's about wanting something so bad that you'd do anything for it, even losing yourself and all you hold dear in order to achieve it. All of those are not your typical topics of horror, but it is enmeshed into the fabric of Infinity Pool. Cronenberg seems to have surpassed his visionary father in the vast avenues of the bizarre, and I cannot wait to see where he takes us next. Cronenberg has a beautiful eye, making the ugliest scenes into beauty and making the most mundane seem so unusual. While I really liked David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future, I felt it was so obtuse that it left out almost too much for the viewer to actually put the story together. Brandon tells a story with just as much left unsaid, but is able to put it in a much sleeker, sexier, and more mass-friendly package without spoon-feeding the intended message. It reminded me of his father's earlier, more mainstream work that he is best known and loved for. I hate having to compare father and son, but wow, there must be something in the water at the Cronenberg house that births this kind of genius. Infinity Pool is Brandon Cronenberg's best film to date. It's violent and sexy, it's perverse and introspective. There's a whole lot of movie to enjoy in this one. But don't feel intimidated. Dive into the Infinity Pool. The water's one of a kind.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're doomed. You're doomed. Live the life that you are meant to be. Live inside